All right, this morning we're going to look at the weights write log. So one of the things about SQL Server to know is that what happens in SQL Server occurs first in the log file. It does not occur first in the data file. Okay, and this of course is not a presentation on that, but you can Google that. You can look information up about how operations occur in SQL Server. But first, everything occurs in the log, and then of course what happens in the log is later transmitted to the data file. And this is so that all operations in SQL Server are of course atomic, and it maintains the acidity, if you would, that of course occurs with SQL databases, transactional consistency. Okay. Well, on the log level, things are first done in memory, called the log buffer. Okay. Part of the reason why is because any insert or update or delete may be updating a page, may be updating a record already in memory. Okay, and think about that. Is if you're going to delete something that's being already read and is already in memory, of course you want that to occur there. You're not going to sit there and go get it from disk if it's already there. Now that being said, if the operation is occurring on a page that is not in memory, it will go get it. It will fetch it. So the write log wait type is between the memory and the disk. And so in the image you can see the RAM, the memory, and you can see the disk. That is where you're going to, that is where you want to diagnose the problem, okay? You're not diagnosing the problem of the speed at which it's writing to RAM, different. It's from the RAM to the disk, okay? So you want to know very quickly what are your disk bottlenecks. To give you a good example, if you are in an OLTP environment, there is absolutely no reason that your log file should be on the same disk as your data file. I don't really think in any environment, OLAP included, you should ever have your your log and data file on the same drive, but I've seen environments that do that. But if you're in an OLTP environment, those need to be on different disks, for sure. How is your log configured on disk? That's a good question to ask. As far as, remember that the log file is sequential, so you're not going to get any benefit by creating multiple log files. You could tell somebody has no idea what they're doing when there's 7 log files. Like, you have no idea what's going on if you think that that's going to do anything for you. Okay, you also want to look at the perfmon counters, log bytes per flush, and log flush wait time. What is your checkpoint frequency? I've been on systems where I've seen log issues, and in diagnosing log issues, one of the things that I found was they were never running checkpoints. And then of course, are your transactions explicit or implicit? Now, here's where you really want to be careful. 2 of the most recent write logs I've seen were related to batches. The developer wanted to do things in batches. There's nothing wrong with doing things in batches. In fact, I'm a big fan of that. Here's the problem, though. Take a scenario where you delete 10,000 records, okay, versus a scenario in which you begin a transaction, delete 10,000 records, commit the transaction, okay? So in one case, we have an explicit transaction where we are opening a transaction and we are committing the transaction. In the other case, we're letting SQL Server do it for us. You may see that there are differences in wait types on the write log wait types, because in the first scenario where we're just deleting 10,000 records, we're not opening and committing the transaction, there could be a commit transaction, an auto commit transaction per delete. And think about how slow that is versus, beginning a transaction, deleting, and then committing it. Same thing with inserts, same thing with updates. So be explicit, okay? Remember that SQL Server is a set-based language, so think in sets. Don't think, same thing with, this is the reason why you avoid cursors and loops. Don't think in cursors and loops, think in sets, okay? If you need to do a loop, do it in .NET PowerShell. Don't do it in T-SQL. So these are just some things to look at. The write log wait type is one that I've seen in certain environments, and the two most common when I'm troubleshooting has to do with how the log is configured on disk. That's a big one. And then of course, usually I'm going to be looking at how the batches are being done, and we'll make some tweaks to those batches.